Welcome back, Coinology. The story of the 1981 cent coin begins quietly, the way many great stories do, with a small piece of metal that almost everyone has held in their hand and almost no one has truly looked at. Imagine a single cent resting on a wooden table, dull brown in color, light in weight, easy to ignore, and yet carrying within it decades of American history, industrial change, economic pressure, human ambition, and the possibility, real or rumored, documented or whispered, of astonishing value. The 1980 Lincoln 1 cent is not just a coin. It is a witness. It is a survivor of a turning point in United States coinage, and for collectors, storytellers, and dreamers, it has become one of the most talked about modern pennies ever struck. In 1980, the United States Mint was already deep into a transformation that had begun earlier in the decade. Rising copper prices had forced the government to rethink how America's smallest denomination was made. For generations, the penny had been a symbol of solid copper, heavy for its size, warm in tone, and reassuring in feel. But by the late 1970s, copper prices were climbing so high that the metal inside the penny was approaching, and sometimes exceeding, the face value of the coin itself. This created a crisis that few people noticed at the time but which fundamentally changed the future of the 1 cent coin. The 1980 penny sits right in the middle of this storm. Officially, the standard composition of the 1980 Lincoln cent was 95% copper and 5% zinc, the same bronze alloy that had been used for decades. The official weight was approximately 3.11 grams, a figure that collectors memorize, test, and obsess over, because a tiny variation in weight can mean the difference between a common coin worth 1 cent and a legendary error worth life-changing money. The diameter measured 19.05 millimeters, and the thickness was about 1.52 millimeters. These numbers may sound boring, but to a serious collector, they are the heartbeat of the coin. Every fraction matters. On the obverse, or front side, the 1981 cent carries the familiar and iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This design first appeared in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, making it the longest-running portrait of the same individual in U.S. coinage history. By 1980, Lincoln's face had already been looking out from American pockets for more than 70 years. His expression is calm, thoughtful, and dignified, symbolizing unity, endurance, and moral strength. Above his head is the word liberty, slightly to the left, while the date 1980 appears to the right. Just below the date, depending on where the coin was minted, there may be a small letter, a mint mark, that changes everything. The mint marks are one of the first things collectors look for. In 1980, pennies were struck at 3 locations. Coins with no mint mark were produced in Philadelphia. Coins with a D mint mark were struck in Denver. Coins with an S mint mark were struck in San Francisco, usually for proof sets rather than general circulation. Each mint had its own machinery, its own working conditions, and its own potential for mistakes. And it is mistakes, tiny, accidental, unintended mistakes, that often turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. The reverse of the 1980 penny still featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Designed by Frank Gasparo, the reverse shows the Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., complete with columns so finely engraved that, with a magnifying glass, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside. Around the top edge runs the inscription United States of America, while the bottom carries 1 cent. Above the memorial is the Latin motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. By 1980, this reverse design was familiar, comforting, and almost invisible to most people, yet to collectors it offered another surface where errors, varieties, and anomalies could hide. At first glance, most 1980 pennies seem common. Millions upon millions were produced. They flowed through banks, cash registers, school lunch lines, and arcade machines. They were dropped, scratched, buried in couches, and forgotten in jars. But hidden among these millions, according to collector lore and documented discoveries, are coins that do not follow the rules. Coins that weigh too much or too little. Coins that were struck twice, off-center, or on the wrong metal. Coins that should not exist, but do. One of the most powerful ideas surrounding the 1980 penny is the concept of transitional errors. The U.S. Mint officially switched from bronze to copper-plated zinc cents in 1982. That year is famous for having multiple compositions and weights. However, experimental work, test planchets, and leftover materials sometimes blur the clean lines that history books try to draw. This has led some collectors to believe, and in rare cases claim, that unusual 1980 pennies may exist on non-standard planchets. A penny that looks like a normal 1980 cent but weighs closer to 2.5 grams instead of 3.11 grams immediately raises eyebrows. Conversely, a coin that weighs more than expected can spark intense excitement. The coin symbol itself, often overlooked, also plays a role in how collectors talk about the penny. The 1 cent coin represents thrift, humility, and beginnings. The phrase "a penny for your thoughts" reflects its cultural role as something small yet meaningful. In the world of collecting, the penny symbolizes accessibility. Almost anyone can start collecting pennies. Almost anyone can dream that a fortune might be hiding in plain sight.
That dream fuels countless searches through rolls, jars, and inherited collections. Now comes the part that turns curiosity into obsession: value. Official price guides list most 1980 pennies as worth only 1 or 2 cents in circulated condition. Even in uncirculated condition, many are valued at just a few cents or perhaps $1. Proof coins from San Francisco might fetch a few dollars more. On paper, it all sounds very ordinary. But markets are not driven only by paper. They are driven by stories, rarity, demand, and the electrifying possibility of the unknown. Within collector communities, then unique in the world, could theoretically command an astronomical price if 2 or more wealthy collectors decided they must own it at any cost. The idea of a 1981 cent coin worth $75 million captures the imagination like almost nothing else. Whether such a price reflects a real transaction, a private offer, or a legendary claim passed from one collector to another, the number itself has power. It turns a tiny brown coin into a symbol of hidden wealth. It makes people slow down when they see a date they once ignored. It transforms pocket change into possibility. But even beyond extreme values, the 1980 penny tells a deeper story about America at the dawn of a new decade. The year 1980 was a time of economic uncertainty, inflation fears, energy crises, and political change. Coins minted during this period reflect cost-cutting measures, efficiency drives, and the pressure to do more with less. Every pink of faith, a belief that careful attention can uncover something extraordinary. The market for rare coins is not static. It moves with trends, discoveries, media attention, and the stories people tell. A single viral video, a sensational auction, or a newly authenticated discovery can shift prices overnight. A coin once dismissed can suddenly become famous. In this environment, the 1980 penny continues to live a double life. To most people, it is nothing. To a few, it is everything. As you hold a 1981 cent coin, you are holding more than copper and zinc. You are holding a moment frozen in metal. You are holding the work of engravers, machinists, and mint workers. You are holding a piece of a system that touches every citizen. And if you are willing to look closely, to weigh carefully, to question assumptions, you might be holding a story that has not yet been fully told. This is only the beginning of that story. There is much more hidden beneath the surface of the 1980 Lincoln cent: more mysteries, more technical details, more market drama, more human obsession. In the next part, the journey will go deeper into rare errors, famous discoveries, authentication battles, and the psychology that drives collectors to search endlessly for a single cent that could change everything. As the search for meaning and value continues, the 1981 cent coin begins to reveal another layer of its identity, one that exists beyond metal and mint marks, beyond official records and price guides. This layer lives in the minds of collectors, dealers, investors, and everyday people who have heard whispers of rare finds and unbelievable sales. It is here that the penny stops being small and starts becoming powerful. Point 1: of the most important things to understand about the 1980 penny is how collectors judge condition, because condition is the language of value. A penny that has circulated for years, rubbed smooth by thousands of hands, will show wear on Lincoln's cheekbone, jawline, and coat. The high points of the design fade first. Letters lose sharpness. The surface becomes dull, sometimes spotted or darkened. These coins tell stories of use, of real life, of buying bread or candy or newspapers. They are honest coins, but they are rarely valuable. Uncirculated 1980 pennies are different. These coins never entered daily commerce. They were pulled from mint bags, rolls, or sets and preserved. Their surfaces remain sharp, with original mint luster that reflects light in a spinning, almost liquid way. The color can range from bright red to red-brown to brown, and even slight differences in color can change value dramatically. Collectors use precise terms to describe this, because a full red coin is far more desirable than one that is toned or darkened over time. Professional grading services use a numerical scale to assign grades, and for pennies, even a single point difference can mean a huge jump in price. A 1980 penny graded MS65 might be common, while one graded MS67 or higher becomes scarce. At the very top of the scale, coins become population rarities, meaning only a handful exist at that level. When collectors compete for the finest known example of a coin, prices can climb to astonishing heights, but condition alone is only one part of the story. Errors are where the 1980 penny truly steps into legend. Errors are mistakes made during the minting process, and they come in many forms. A coin might be struck off-center, meaning the design is shifted in part of the blank planchet shows with no design at all. Another might be double struck, where the coin was struck once, moved slightly, and struck again, creating overlapping images. There are clipped planchets, where part of the metal blank was missing before striking, resulting in a curved or straight missing section on the finished coin. Then there are die errors, which can be even more dramatic. A cracked die can leave raised lines across the coin. A broken die can produce dramatic cuts, where part of the design disappears under a blob of metal. A doubled die, one of the most sought-after errors, occurs when the die itself has a doubled image, causing letters or numbers to appear doubled on every coin struck from that die.
If a significant doubled die were confirmed for a 1980 penny, especially one that had gone unnoticed for decades, it could instantly rewrite the market. Weight remains one of the most critical clues in identifying something extraordinary. Serious collectors often use digital scales accurate to 2 decimal places. When a 1980 penny weighs significantly more or less than 3.11 grams, alarms go off. A lighter coin might suggest an experimental or wrong metal planchet. A heavier coin could indicate a wrong stock or even a foreign planchet. Each possibility opens a door to a different kind of rarity. Stories circulate about collectors who discovered unusual 1980 pennies in ordinary places. A jar inherited from a grandparent. A roll from a local bank. A handful of change from a convenience store. These stories are powerful because they suggest that history and fortune do not always hide behind glass cases and velvet trays. Sometimes they sit quietly, waiting for someone to look closer. With the idea of a 1980 penny valued in the tens of millions of dollars does not come from nowhere. It is rooted in the reality that the coin market has seen extraordinary sales before. Unique coins, especially those tied to transitional periods, experimental strikes, or mint errors that should never have escaped, have sold for sums that once seemed impossible. When a coin is truly unique, when it represents a moment of change, and when it is confirmed by experts, its value is no longer tied to metal or denomination. It becomes art, history, and trophy all at once. Collectors who chase these coins are driven by more than money. There is a deep psychological element at play. The act of searching itself becomes addictive. The sound of coins pouring onto a table, the feel of them sliding through fingers, the quiet focus of examining dates and details under a lamp, these experiences connect people across generations. A child searching pennies with a magnifying glass is participating in the same ritual as a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience. The 1980 penny also exists at a crossroads of technology. By this time, minting processes were becoming more automated, but human oversight still mattered. Machines were faster, but not perfect. When something went wrong, it could go wrong on a large scale or a very small one. A single error coin slipping through quality control could survive unnoticed for years, even decades, before being recognized for what it truly is. Market value is not just about rarity, it is about timing. A coin discovered today might be worth far more than the same coin discovered years ago, simply because of increased interest, better communication among collectors, and global access to auctions and information. Social media and online platforms have turned once local discoveries into worldwide sensations. A single image of an unusual 1980 penny can reach millions of viewers in hours, creating demand almost instantly. There is also the role of authentication, which cannot be overstated. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Any 1980 penny claimed to be worth millions must be examined by recognized experts, tested for metal composition, weighed, measured, and compared to known standards. This process can be stressful, expensive, and emotionally intense. But it is also where legends are either born or broken. Even coins that do not reach mythical values still carry significance. A rare error might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which is still remarkable for a 1-cent piece. These finds validate the time and attention collectors invest. They reinforce the idea that knowledge itself has value. As the story of the 1981 cent continues, it becomes clear that this coin is more than a product of its year. It is a mirror reflecting how people see money, history, and possibility. It challenges the assumption that value is obvious. It reminds us that what we overlook can sometimes be what matters most, and still, there is more to uncover. Beyond errors and grades lie auction battles, private sales, legendary hoards, and the human drama that surrounds them. The next part of this journey will move deeper into those stories, into the moments when a simple penny steps onto the world stage and forces everyone to pay attention. As the journey moves further into the world of the 1981 cent coin, the focus shifts from discovery to confrontation, the moment when a collector realizes that what they are holding might be something extraordinary, and the long, uncertain path that follows. This is where excitement meets doubt, where dreams collide with experts, and where the smallest details can decide the fate of a coin. Imagine the moment of realization. A collector places a 1980 penny on a digital scale, expecting to see the familiar number, but instead the display shows something unusual. The heart rate increases. The coin is weighed again. The result is the same. Then comes the magnifying glass, the strong light, the careful inspection of every letter, every line, every surface imperfection. In this moment, the coin stops being an object and becomes a question mark. What is this, and why is it different? This is often followed by research, long hours spent comparing images, reading old mint reports, studying auction records, and listening to the experiences of others. The collector learns that not all experts agree on everything. Some are cautious, some skeptical, some open-minded. The coin community is filled with debate, and the 1980 penny is no exception. Because it sits close to a major compositional change, opinions can differ sharply about what is possible and what is not. When a coin is believed to be truly rare, the next step is authentication. This process can feel intimidating. The coin is sent away, sometimes across the country, sometimes across the world, to a grading service.
For days or weeks, the owner waits.
During this time, imagination runs wild.
Is this the coin that will rewrite the books?
Or will it come back labeled as ordinary, its mystery dissolved by a few words on a plastic holder? Authentication involves more than a simple look.
Experts examine the coin under high magnification. They test the metal composition using non-destructive methods.
They measure weight, diameter, and thickness with extreme precision. They compare the coin to known standards and known errors.
Every step is designed to separate truth from hope.
For some coins, this process ends the story. For others, it begins a much bigger one. When a coin is confirmed as rare or unique, the world changes quickly. Word spreads among dealers and collectors.
Private messages are sent. Phone calls are made. Suddenly, the coin is no longer just one person's discovery. It becomes a target. Collectors with deep pockets and strong egos take notice.
Each one wants to own the coin, not just for profit, but for prestige.
Owning a unique coin is a form of immortality in the numismatic world.
Your name becomes attached to that piece of history. This is where market psychology takes over. Prices are no longer based on guides or averages. They are based on desire. If two collectors believe they must have the same coin, the price can climb beyond all rational limits. This is how million-dollar coins are made. Not because the metal is valuable, but because the story is, and because someone is willing to pay to own that story. Auction houses play a dramatic role in this stage.
A rare 1980 penny offered at a major auction would be carefully promoted. Professional photographs would capture every detail. Descriptions would emphasize rarity, uniqueness, and historical importance. Estimates might be conservative or deliberately provocative.
When the auction begins, tension builds with every bid. Each raise is a statement of intent. Each pause feels like a heartbeat, but not all legendary coins appear at public auction.
Some change hands quietly in private sales.
In these cases, prices may never be officially recorded.
Rumors circulate instead.
Numbers grow larger with each retelling.
This is how myths are born. A private sale of an extraordinary coin can become, over time, a story of unimaginable value.
The truth may be known only to a handful of people, bound by confidentiality agreements and mutual interest. The idea of a 1980 penny worth $75 million fits perfectly into the shadowy space between documentation and legend.
It represents the extreme end of what people believe is possible.
Even if such a price has never been publicly recorded, the fact that people talk about it says something important. It shows how deeply the idea of hidden treasure resonates. There is also the emotional cost of this journey.
Collectors invest time, money, and hope.
When a coin turns out to be ordinary, disappointment can be intense.
Some walk away from the hobby.
Others double down, convinced that the next roll, the next jar, the next find will be the one. The 1980 penny becomes a symbol of persistence.
It teaches patience, resilience, and humility. For those who succeed, life can change dramatically.
Even a 5-figure or 6-figure find can pay debts, fund education, or secure a future. Stories of these successes circulate widely, fueling more searches, more videos, more discussions. Each story reinforces the idea that rarity is real, that discovery is possible, and that the past still holds secrets. The coin itself remains silent through all of this.
It does not announce its value. It does not explain its origin.
It simply exists, bearing the marks of its creation.
Humans supply the meaning. Humans assign the price.
Humans argue, celebrate, and despair over a piece of metal smaller than a fingernail. As this chapter of the story closes, one truth becomes clear.
The 1981 cent coin is not just about money. It is about belief.
Belief that careful observation matters. Belief that history leaves traces. Belief that even the smallest thing can carry enormous significance. The journey is far from over. There are still unanswered questions, still unexplored possibilities, still layers of history and market behavior waiting to be uncovered. In the next part, the focus will turn to the global perspective, the way collectors around the world view the American penny, and how international demand can elevate a simple cent to global fame.
You can replace this text with any text you wish.
You can either write in this text box or paste your own text here. Try different languages and voices.
Change the speed and the pitch of the voice.
You can even tweak the SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to control how the different sections of the text sound. Click on SSML above to give it a try. Enjoy using. When the story of the 1981 cent coin expands beyond national borders, it begins to take on an even larger meaning. What was once a small piece of American change becomes a global artifact, studied, discussed, and desired by collectors far beyond the United States.
This global perspective adds another powerful layer to the mystery and market value of the 1980 penny, because rarity is no longer judged by one country alone, but by the entire world. Across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and beyond, American coins have long held a special fascination. The image of Abraham Lincoln is recognized even by people who have never used a US penny in daily life. For many international collectors, the Lincoln cent represents stability, history, and the long story of American democracy. When they hear about rare errors, transitional pieces, or extraordinary values attached to a small cent, interest grows rapidly. The 1980 penny, sitting at the edge of a major material change, becomes especially intriguing. International collectors often approach US coins with a different mindset. Where American collectors may focus on mint marks and die varieties, foreign collectors sometimes focus on symbolism and historical context. To them, a 1980 penny is not just a coin from a specific mint, but a product of the Cold War era, a time of global tension, economic struggle, and technological change. This broader view can elevate the coin's importance and, in some cases, its value. Global demand can dramatically affect prices. When collectors from multiple countries compete for the same rare piece, the market widens. A coin that might attract a handful of bidders domestically could attract dozens internationally. Each bidder brings their own currency, their own economic conditions, and their own motivations. Some see rare coins as investments, a way to store value outside traditional financial systems. Others see them as cultural artifacts worth preserving at any cost. The rise of online platforms has accelerated this process. Decades ago, a rare 1980 penny might have been known only to local collectors or readers of specialized magazines. Today, a single high-quality image or video can reach viewers across the globe in minutes. Comments pour in from different languages and cultures, all focused on the same tiny object. This global attention can transform a coin's status almost overnight. There is also the role of migration and family history. Many people around the world have personal connections to the United States through relatives, education, or work. For them, American coins carry emotional weight. A 1980 penny found in an old box might connect someone to a parent or grandparent who lived or worked in America during that time. This emotional value does not show up in price guides, but it strongly influences demand. The concept of extreme value, such as a penny rumored to be worth $75 million, resonates strongly in countries where the US dollar itself is seen as a powerful symbol. The idea that a single cent could surpass the value of luxury properties, rare art, or entire businesses captures imaginations everywhere. It challenges assumptions about wealth and reminds people that value can appear in unexpected forms. Global collectors also bring different standards of preservation. In some cultures, coins are kept in pristine condition as a matter of tradition. This means that exceptionally well-preserved 1980 pennies may exist outside the United States, waiting to be recognized by the broader market. When such coins re-enter the global marketplace, they can surprise experts and reset expectations. Another factor is currency comparison. A value that seems extreme in one country might be viewed differently in another. Exchange rates, purchasing power, and local economic realities all shape how people perceive price. A multi-million-dollar coin may be seen not as extravagance, but as a strategic acquisition by a wealthy international collector or institution. Museums and private foundations also play a role. Institutions dedicated to preserving monetary history may compete with private collectors for unique pieces. When an institution becomes interested, the conversation changes. The coin is no longer just an object of trade, but a piece of documented history worthy of long-term preservation. This institutional interest can push values higher and solidify a coin's legendary status. Through all of this, the 1980 penny remains physically unchanged. It does not know that it is being discussed in different languages, analyzed in different currencies, and imagined in different cultural contexts. Yet its story grows richer with every new perspective. As global attention increases, so does scrutiny. International experts bring their own techniques, technologies, and interpretations. A coin dismissed by one group might be validated by another. This cross-examination strengthens the field of numismatics and keeps debates alive. It ensures that the story of the 1980 penny is not static, but evolving. By the time the coin has traveled through these global conversations, it has become something far larger than a 1-cent piece. It becomes a symbol of how history, economics, culture, and human imagination intersect. It shows how a small object can connect people across continents and generations, and still, there is another dimension waiting to be explored. Beyond global markets and international collectors lies the personal, almost philosophical meaning of the coin. The next part will turn inward, examining why humans are drawn to small objects with big stories, and how the 1980 penny reflects deeper truths about value, memory, and the human desire to find meaning in the ordinary. Text-to-speech. As the story of the 1981 cent coin moves inward, away from markets and borders and into the human mind, it becomes clear that the true power of this coin does not come only from rarity or price. It comes from psychology, from emotion, and from the deep human urge to believe that something extraordinary can be hidden inside the ordinary.
This is where the penny stops being just an object of metal and becomes a mirror. From childhood, people are taught that pennies are almost worthless. They are dropped on sidewalks, ignored in pockets, left behind in trays. Many people do not even bother to pick them up. Yet at the same time, there is a saying, find a penny, pick it up, all day long you'll have good luck. This contradiction lives at the heart of the 1980 penny story. It is small, dismissed, yet symbolically powerful. That tension fuels fascination. When someone searches through pennies, they are not just searching for money. They are searching for validation, for proof that attention and patience matter. The act of examining a 1980 penny closely is an act of resistance against a fast, disposable world. It says that details matter. That history matters. That slowing down can reveal things others miss. The belief that a 1980 penny could be worth an unimaginable sum, even as high as $75 million, taps into a universal dream. It is the dream of discovery without privilege. You do not need to be born wealthy or powerful to find a penny. Anyone, anywhere, might hold one. This makes the dream democratic. It belongs to everyone. This belief is strengthened by real stories of transformation. Not just in coin collecting, but in life. People hear about a rare stamp found in an attic, a painting discovered at a garage sale, a forgotten manuscript that turns out to be priceless. These stories train the mind to stay open to possibility. The 1980 penny becomes part of this larger narrative, the idea that the world still has secrets. There is also nostalgia. For many people, the year 1980 represents a threshold between eras. It sits at the edge of the modern digital world and the fading memory of a more analog time. Holding a 1980 penny can trigger memories of childhood, of parents and grandparents, of simpler transactions and physical money. This emotional connection increases the coin's perceived value. Even before any monetary consideration, collectors often describe a sense of intimacy with their coins. They know every mark, every tone change, every reflection. A 1980 penny that has been studied for years becomes familiar, almost like a companion. This emotional investment cannot be separated from market value. When someone has devoted time and care to an object, it becomes harder to part with it, and when they do, the price they ask reflects that bond. Skepticism also plays an important role. Not everyone believes in extreme valuations, and that skepticism creates tension. Debates between believers and doubters sharpen arguments, refine research, and push people to look deeper. The 1980 penny thrives in this space of disagreement. It forces questions. It demands evidence. It invites challenge. The fear of missing out is another powerful force. When people hear that others are searching pennies and finding rare errors, they feel a pull to join in. What if the next coin is the one? What if the opportunity passes unnoticed? This fear drives countless hours of searching, learning, and discussion. It turns casual interest into serious study. There is also a moral dimension. Some collectors see themselves as caretakers of history. They believe that rare coins should be preserved, studied, and respected. Finding an unusual 1980 penny is not just about profit, it is about responsibility. This sense of stewardship adds depth to the experience and elevates the coin beyond mere currency. At the same time, the fantasy of wealth cannot be ignored. The image of a single cent changing someone's life is deeply compelling. It challenges traditional ideas about work, reward, and fairness. It suggests that luck and awareness can sometimes matter as much as effort. This idea is comforting to some and unsettling to others, which is why it sparks such strong reactions. The 1980 penny, in this psychological light, becomes a symbol of hope. Not blind hope, but attentive hope. The kind that requires looking, learning, and caring. It asks people to engage with the world more deeply, to question assumptions, and to find meaning in small things. As this inward journey continues, another layer comes into view: the future. What will happen to the 1980 penny in decades to come? How will changing technology, digital money, and shifting cultural values affect how people see this coin? The next part will look forward, exploring how the story of the 1981 cent might continue to evolve, long after today's searches have ended. Looking toward the future, the story of the 1981 cent coin begins to stretch beyond the present moment and into a world that is changing faster than ever before. Money itself is transforming. Digital payments, cryptocurrencies, and cashless societies are becoming more common, and physical coins are slowly disappearing from everyday life. In this environment, the 1980 penny takes on a new role, not just as currency, but as a relic of a fading era. As fewer people use coins daily, the number of eyes examining pennies naturally decreases. This has an interesting effect. On one hand, fewer searches mean fewer discoveries. On the other hand, it means that rare pieces can remain hidden even longer, increasing their mystery and potential impact when finally found. The 1980 penny may still be waiting in forgotten drawers, sealed boxes, or old collections that have not been opened in decades. Technology will play a major role in how these coins are studied and valued in the future. Advanced imaging, artificial intelligence, and improved metal analysis tools will allow experts to detect details that were once invisible. Tiny differences in die characteristics, metal composition, or strike quality can be identified with precision. A 1980 penny that once seemed ordinary could, under future technology, reveal features that elevate it to a new category of rarity. At the same time, digital archives and global databases will make information more accessible. Every known variety, error, and high-grade example of the 1980 penny can be documented and shared. This transparency may reduce some myths, but it can also strengthen legitimate claims. When a truly unique coin appears, the evidence supporting it will be clearer and more convincing than ever before. The future market for rare coins is also likely to evolve. Younger collectors may approach the hobby differently, blending traditional collecting with digital tools, social media, and online communities. The story of a coin may become as important as the coin itself. A 1980 penny with a well-documented history, clear authentication, and a compelling narrative could attract attention not just from collectors, but from historians, educators, and even artists. Institutions may also take a greater interest. As physical money becomes less common, museums and universities may prioritize preserving examples of everyday currency from the late 20th century. The 1980 penny, representing a pre-digital economic world and a moment before a major compositional shift, fits perfectly into this mission. Institutional demand can stabilize and elevate values over time. The question of extreme value remains open. Whether or not a 1980 penny ever officially sells for $75 million, the very discussion of such a number shapes perception. It sets a psychological ceiling that influences how people think about rarity and worth. Future generations may look back and see today's debates as the early chapters of a longer story. There is also the possibility of rediscovery. History shows that important finds often happen long after the events themselves. Coins once considered unremarkable are reclassified when new information emerges. Mint records are re-examined. Old assumptions are challenged. The 1980 penny may still hold secrets that have not yet been uncovered or understood. As society changes, so does the meaning of collecting. In a world saturated with digital images and virtual assets, physical objects gain a different kind of value. They are tangible, touchable, and real. A 1980 penny can be held, weighed, and examined in a way that no digital file can replicate. This physical presence may become increasingly precious. The future also brings questions of preservation. How many 1980 pennies will survive in high-grade condition? How many will be lost, damaged, or melted? Scarcity can increase not because fewer were made, but because fewer remain. Time itself becomes a force shaping value. Ultimately, the future of the 1981 cent coin is not fixed. It will be shaped by discoveries, technologies, cultural shifts, and human curiosity. The coin will continue to move through hands and minds, accumulating stories along the way. As the narrative approaches its final chapters, one last perspective remains to be explored: the legacy. What does the 1980 penny leave behind? How will it be remembered, and what does its story teach us about money, history, and ourselves? The next part will bring everything together, reflecting on the lasting meaning of this small but endlessly fascinating coin. When the conversation turns to legacy, the 1981 cent coin begins to stand not just as an object of curiosity or potential wealth, but as a lasting symbol of how human beings interact with history. Legacy is not only about what something is worth today, but about what it represents over time, and the 1980 penny carries lessons that reach far beyond its face value. The first part of its legacy is educational. For countless people, the 1980 penny serves as an entry point into numismatics. It teaches beginners how to look closely, how to weigh, how to compare, and how to question. Through this single coin, people learn about mint marks, metal composition, die varieties, and grading standards. It becomes a classroom in the palm of a hand. Many serious collectors trace their passion back to a simple moment of curiosity sparked by an ordinary-looking cent. Another part of its legacy is historical. The 1980 penny captures a moment when the United States was on the verge of change in its coinage system. It represents the last full years of the traditional bronze cent before cost pressures forced a shift in composition. Future historians may look at the 1980 penny as a marker, a physical reminder of economic stress and adaptation. In this way, the coin becomes evidence, not just artifact. The Lincoln portrait itself adds depth to this legacy. Abraham Lincoln remains one of the most studied and revered figures in American history. His presence on the penny links everyday transactions to national ideals. By 1980, this connection had already endured for decades, reinforcing the idea that values and symbols can persist even as the world around them changes. The penny carries this continuity forward. The stories that surround the 1980 penny are also part of its legacy. Stories of searching through rolls late at night. Stories of excitement, disappointment, and occasional triumph. Stories of families collecting together, passing down jars of coins and knowledge along with them. These narratives are not recorded in price guides, but they are real and powerful. They are how history lives in everyday life. The idea of extreme value, whether fully realized or not, leaves its own mark. The rumor or belief that a penny could be worth tens of millions of dollars challenges conventional thinking. It forces people to reconsider assumptions about value and importance. Even if such prices remain hypothetical, the impact of the idea itself is undeniable. It reshapes behavior, inspires learning, and keeps interest alive. There is also a social legacy. Coin collecting brings people together across age, culture, and background. Discussions about the 1980 penny connect strangers through shared curiosity. Online forums, videos, and conversations create communities centered around a tiny object. In a fragmented world, this shared focus is meaningful. The legacy of the 1980 penny is not without controversy. Debates about authenticity, exaggeration, and hype are part of the story. These debates are healthy. They encourage critical thinking and protect the integrity of the field. They ensure that claims are tested and that history is not rewritten without evidence. The coin's legacy includes these arguments as much as the discoveries. As time passes, the number of people who remember the year 1980 firsthand will decrease. For future generations, the penny will be a link to a time they did not experience. It will carry with it questions about how people lived, paid, and valued things. In this way, the coin becomes a bridge between generations. Ultimately, the legacy of the 1981 cent coin is about attention. It teaches that what we choose to notice matters. That value is not always obvious. That even the smallest things can carry large stories. Whether a 1980 penny is worth 1 cent or an unimaginable fortune, it has already achieved something remarkable. It has made people look closer. As the story nears its end, one final reflection remains. After all the history, psychology, market dynamics, and future speculation, what does the 1980 penny truly mean to the individual holding it? The final part will close the journey by returning to that simple, personal moment: one person, one coin, and one decision to see it not as small, but as significant. Here is part 7 continuing seamlessly, same style, no headings, no captions, long-form storytelling as you asked. When everything is stripped away, the prices, the rumors, the arguments, the global attention, the 1981 cent coin ultimately comes down to a single human moment. A person holding a penny and deciding whether it is worth looking at twice. That moment, quiet and ordinary, is where the true meaning of this coin lives. Picture someone sitting at a table late at night, light focused on a small circle of metal. The world is silent. No auction house, no expert, no camera. Just a coin and a pair of eyes. This is how every great discovery begins. Not with noise, but with attention. The 1980 penny does not announce itself. It asks to be noticed. In that moment, the holder may feel doubt. Why spend time on a penny? Why care about something so small? Yet curiosity wins. The coin is turned over. The date is checked. The weight is questioned. The surface is examined. This act of attention is already a kind of victory. It means the coin has succeeded in pulling someone out of indifference. The personal meaning of the 1980 penny often has nothing to do with money at first. It is about connection. Maybe the coin came from a parent's old collection. Maybe it was found in a childhood piggy bank. Maybe it was picked up from the ground on an ordinary day. These origins matter. They give the coin a story that exists before any market value is assigned. For some people, the penny becomes a lesson in patience. Searching through coins teaches slow thinking in a fast world. It trains the eye to see differences, the mind to compare facts, and the heart to accept uncertainty. Not every coin will be special, but every search strengthens skill and discipline. For others, the penny becomes a symbol of hope. The idea that something overlooked could be extraordinary speaks to a deep human desire to be the one who sees what others miss. The 1980 penny stands as proof that history does not always hide in obvious places. Sometimes it hides in pockets. There is also humility in the coin. Even if a penny turns out to be ordinary, the experience of examining it is not wasted. Knowledge grows. Curiosity deepens. Respect for history increases. The 1980 penny teaches that value is not only about results, but about the process of learning and looking. When people imagine a penny worth $75 million, they are not just imagining wealth. They are imagining validation. They are imagining the moment when careful attention is rewarded on an unimaginable scale. Whether that moment ever happens exactly as imagined is less important than what the imagination itself inspires. The coin does not change. The holder does. After spending time with a 1980 penny, people often see all coins differently. They slow down. They question dates. They notice details. The penny becomes a teacher. In this way, the 1981 cent coin leaves its strongest mark not in vaults or auctions, but in minds. It reshapes how people think about money, history, and possibility. It challenges the belief that only big things matter, and so the journey ends where it began. One coin. One hand. One decision to look closer. Whether the 1980 penny is worth 1 cent, $1,000, or an unimaginable fortune, it has already done something powerful.
It has reminded us that meaning is not always loud, that value is not always visible, and that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories.
As the story continues beyond the personal moment, the 1981-cent coin begins to exist in memory, not just in hand.
Memory is where objects gain a second life.
Long after a coin is put away, sold, or passed on, the experience of discovering it stays alive.
This is where the penny becomes more than metal and more than money.
It becomes a marker of time. People remember where they were when they first learned to look closely at coins. They remember the smell of old paper envelopes, the sound of coins clinking together, the feeling of anticipation before checking a date. The 1980 penny often becomes part of that memory because it sits at the edge of old and new, familiar yet mysterious. It feels modern enough to recognize, yet old enough to feel historical. Stories begin to form around it.
A person tells a friend about a strange 1980 penny they found. That friend tells someone else. Details change slightly. Excitement grows. What started as a quiet observation turns into a shared narrative. This is how objects enter folklore.
Not official history, but living history, passed from person to person. The penny also becomes a reference point.
People measure other finds against it. Is this rarer than the 1980 cent? Is this heavier, brighter, more unusual?
In this way, the coin becomes a standard, a comparison tool that shapes how collectors think. Its importance grows simply because it is often discussed. Over time, even skepticism becomes part of the memory. People remember arguments, debates, comments, and doubts. They remember who believed and who dismissed. These disagreements do not weaken the coin story, they strengthen it.
Controversy keeps memory alive.
Silence is what truly erases things. The passage of time adds weight.
As years turn into decades, the 1980 penny moves further away from the present. Fewer people remember when it was new. More people see it as a relic. This distance adds gravity. What once felt ordinary begins to feel important simply because it has survived. Collectors age. Some leave the hobby. Some pass away. Their coins move on, often without their stories attached.
A 1980 penny may sit in a new collection with no knowledge of where it came from.
Yet the act of rediscovery begins again. Another person notices it. Another story starts.
This cycle gives the coin a kind of immortality. There is also a quiet sadness in this process. Many remarkable coins are lost, damaged, or forgotten.
Some are spent unknowingly. Some are melted. Some sit unseen forever.
The 1980 penny reminds us that history is fragile. What survives does so partly by chance. At the same time, there is beauty in that fragility.
It means that every surviving coin is a success story. Every 1980 penny still in existence has avoided countless risks.
It has traveled through time intact. That alone gives it meaning. The idea of future discovery continues to hover.
Even now, someone somewhere may be holding a jar, unaware of what lies inside. The possibility is never zero. As long as coins exist, discovery remains possible.
This open-endedness keeps the story alive of the 1981-cent coin. Through memory, becomes timeless. It is no longer locked to its year. It belongs to every moment someone thinks about it, talks about it, or searches for it. Its value, in this sense, is not fixed. It expands and contracts with attention. As the journey approaches its final breath, everything circles back to a simple truth. Objects do not decide their own importance. People do. The 1980 penny is important because people chose to care, to question, to imagine, and that is why its story does not truly end. Even when the search stops, even when the debates fade, the idea remains. Somewhere, a small brown coin waits to be noticed again, ready to restart the entire story from the beginning. As the story reaches this stage, the 1981-cent coin begins to feel almost timeless, suspended between what has already happened and what might still occur. By now, it is no longer just a coin from a specific year. It has become an idea, a symbol that keeps returning in different forms, in different hands, across different moments. People who once searched casually often find that the habit never fully leaves them. Even years later, they still glance at dates, still feel the weight of a coin in their palm, still wonder. The 1980 penny lingers in the background of their thinking, a quiet reminder that the ordinary can still surprise. This lingering presence is part of its power. The coin also begins to take on a reflective role. When someone looks at a 1980 penny decades later, they are not just seeing metal, they are seeing time. They are seeing how much the world has changed. Prices, technology, communication, even the concept of money itself has evolved. The penny becomes a fixed point in a moving world, something solid to compare everything else against. For many, the search for rare coins eventually becomes less about finding riches and more about understanding systems.
How were coins made? Why did errors happen? What decisions did governments and mints make under pressure? The 1980 penny opens the door to these questions.
It becomes a gateway to understanding economics, manufacturing, and history in a very real, tactile way. There is also a moment when collectors realize that not every mystery needs to be solved completely.
Some questions remain unanswered. Some coins remain unclassified. Some rumors remain unconfirmed.
The idea that a 1980 penny could be worth an unimaginable sum may never be fully proven or disproven.
And that uncertainty is not a weakness.
It is part of the story's endurance. The human need for wonder plays a central role here. In a world where information is instant and answers are expected immediately, the existence of unresolved mysteries feels refreshing.
The 1980 penny resists closure. It refuses to be fully categorized.
This resistance keeps it alive in conversation. As time passes, new collectors reinterpret old information.
They question earlier conclusions.
They re-examine coins with fresh eyes.
What one generation overlooked, another may recognize.
The story of the 1980 penny is constantly rewritten, not because facts change, but because perspectives do. The coin also becomes a quiet teacher about restraint. It shows that not every object needs to be exploited immediately.
Sometimes preservation matters more than profit.
Holding onto a coin, studying it, and passing it on can be just as meaningful as selling it. The 1980 penny teaches respect for the past. There is a sense of continuity that develops. A person today searching through pennies is connected to someone decades earlier doing the same thing. They share the same movements, the same hopes, the same questions. The coin acts as a bridge between them, linking experiences across time. Eventually, many collectors reach a point of acceptance. They understand that the real reward was never guaranteed wealth. It was the journey itself.
The nights spent learning. The excitement of possibility. The quiet satisfaction of knowing more than before.
The 1980 penny becomes a marker of that journey. As this chapter closes, the story feels almost complete, yet still open. There is only one final step left, the ending that does not end, the conclusion that simply returns to the beginning. The last part will bring everything full circle, leaving the coin exactly where it belongs, not in myth, not in hype, but in the hands of whoever chooses to look at it next. And so the story comes back to where it began, not with a price, not with a headline, not with a promise of fortune, but with a single cent resting quietly in the world. The 1981 cent coin does not demand attention. It waits. It waits in drawers, in jars, in collections, in forgotten corners of everyday life. It waits for someone to pause long enough to notice it. After everything that has been said, the history, the errors, the psychology, the markets, the rumors, the hopes, one truth remains unchanged.
The coin itself is simple. Small. Silent.
It carries no label that explains its importance. Whatever meaning it is comes from the human mind that engages with it. For some, the 1980 penny will always be just a penny, something to spend or ignore.
And that is perfectly fine.
For others, it becomes a question.
A possibility.
A reminder that value is not always obvious and that history often hides in plain sight. That difference in perception is where the real magic lives. The idea that a 1-cent coin could ever be associated with unimaginable value, even something as extreme as $75 million, is not just about money.
It is about imagination.
It is about the human refusal to believe that everything important has already been found. It is about the quiet rebellion against the notion that small things cannot matter. Every time someone looks at a 1980 penny and hesitates before tossing it aside, the story continues. Every time someone weighs it, examines it, researches it, or simply wonders about it, the coin fulfills its purpose. It becomes a bridge between past and present, between knowledge and curiosity. The penny does not promise wealth.
It offers possibility. It offers a lesson in attention. It offers a connection to history that can be held between two fingers.
Whether it leads to discovery or disappointment, it always leads to understanding. In the end, the 1981 cent coin teaches something simple and profound.
That significance is not always announced. That value is not always loud.
That sometimes, the most powerful stories belong to the smallest objects, and somewhere, right now, a 1980 penny sits quietly, waiting for the next person to look at it not as change, but as a story still unfolding.